lots of times when I heard something about, hey, my brother, he said something in church the other day with a youth group. I overheard him. He said something about, hey, people produce just like animals. Just look at the animals, how they reproduce. That's the same way with us humans. And I thought it sounded so sick because I was taught animals and humans can't be compared. So I actually did ask Dad about that. I told you earlier that at age 16, I figured it out. Well, that's how I figured it out, because I went to Dad and I said, Dad, that sounds disgusting and sick. I said, is that true? And he says, well, son, that actually is true. I'm not going to lie to you. I know I'm not supposed to say this. Don't tell Mom I verified it with you. But he says, yes, that is how you were brought into this world, was through sex. And it was just like the animals reproduce. And that's how I found out.
Oh my gosh. What's going through your mind? I mean, you said that at first it was disgusting. Was it like light bulbs? Were you just like, oh, it all makes sense now? Or how were you feeling when your dad told you this?
It was kind of both. At first I was like, oh, that is so sick. That just sounds so messed up. There's no way I could do such an act to a woman, a female. That's just sick. That's like animals, And the other side of me was like, oh, now see, that made the light bulb kind of go off, and like, wow, now I get it. I was kind of glad and relieved to know though how that works.
Yeah. So when you say zero sex education, I just need to put a whole bunch of boundaries around this so I'm really understanding. So you don't know what the word sex is. You don't know what it means. You don't know how reproduction works. So do they even give you any sort of knowledge around your own basic anatomy? Like boys learn about themselves and girls separately learn about themselves?
Right. Yeah, they very much separated us, for Saturday night bath night, which is the only time we got a bath. And all of us boys were in one room until we were all done taking a bath. We could all be naked among one another. That was fine until we all had our turn. Now, when we were done, we had to get upstairs, close our door, and that was monitored. Mom made sure we stayed upstairs while my sisters were taking their turn, and they were all together getting their bath all done and everything. So they very much separated us, did not want us to know this. And I want to just share real quick that I started interviewing people online just about 2019, and I had a ex-Amish girl that I interviewed by the name of Susie, and she shared with me how her brother over and over kept on, she didn't know what the stuff was that was coming out when he when he got off. So he was having sex with her and she didn't realize what that was. So she's trying to tell me that she had no idea that's where babies even come from. This was happening to her when he was molesting her, but she still did not realize that is where babies come from, but yet she was going through that.
Oh my gosh. She didn't get pregnant, did she?
She didn't, but she shared a couple other women that did get pregnant at a very young age that they ended up having, obviously take the baby away. They don't let people know about what happened if it was a brother or an uncle or a family member. Usually they'll take that baby when it's born and you'll never hear about it again. A family will take it. They'll keep it secret. They don't let it leak out. Other Amish churches sometimes take it just to keep it hush hush.
Oh my gosh. So they never get to see their child again? They just give it away to somebody else?
Yes, that is correct. I interviewed one gal that said that she had a baby. She was impregnated by her grandpa, but she said it was either her grandpa or her uncle because they were both doing it over a 5-year period. And when she had the baby, they immediately took that baby and it was gone. She never seen it ever again. She doesn't even know if an English family got it or an Amish family got it.
Oh my gosh. That is heartbreaking.
So you can tell that even though that they don't have sex education, they don't want this to happen. They are so against this having incest and rape and all of that sexual abuse. They're very against that. But due to the lack of education, it does happen. There's young men that are 13, 14, 15 years old that their hormones are raging through them. They don't know how to act, and they'll respond in a way where all at once they get addicted to it and they just take it out on their sister. Right. And so you have some of those happening around Amish communities. Yeah.
Right. Well, if you don't even have a word for the act, you just know that it feels good. Of course, there's going to be some distortions happening because there's no frame of reference. And that's the crazy thing about this whole purity culture thing is when you don't teach boundaries, you don't teach consent, you don't teach just even the basics of it, right? Like this is how this works and this will hurt if you don't do this. It just creates a lot of problems because we're humans and it's in our biology and it's going to happen anyway. So this whole abstinence only thing doesn't make any sense. And on the flip side, and I experienced this, not personally, but I know with Mormonism this happens. They do the same thing, the shame, the guilt. If you slip up before you're married, just forget about it. You will feel guilty for a very long time. You will be punished for it. And then when you get married, have all the babies. And you're just supposed to turn it on, like everything's fine. And now it's beautiful and it's sacred and it's of God. And like the mind F that you have to go through to make yourself okay with that, I can imagine is just so incredibly difficult. I never had to do that quick switch because I left Mormonism before I got married and I was able to kind of figure out my own sexuality. But it took years before all that guilt and shame went away, and years before I understood even just like, I guess you could call it the basics of sex, but just like a healthy sex life, a healthy sexuality. So from what I understand, Amish people tend to get married young because they do want to have many children. So would you be able to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, they are known to have many children. That is, they believe that is a blessing from God. They have big farms. They need help on the farms. They need help in the house. So their normal tradition is obviously to have as many children as they possibly can. My grandfather came out of a family of 20. One didn't live, so there was 19 living children, and the top, 2 or 3 was married by the time the youngest one was born. So that is a normal custom for the Amish to have lots of children. So much so that when there's difficulty having children for the female, they will actually allow, our church anyway, allowed us to go adopt from the outside and take children in, even though they were not born or raised Amish. They even allowed us to go adopt like that. And also what I just mentioned earlier, obviously with the babies that were born through incest or rape or stuff like that, those families, those couples that couldn't have children also would sometimes take those. But you just didn't really hear why they all at once had a kid. We always sometimes ask like, hey, why did they just receive a newborn? I didn't know she was pregnant. Well, that's why, because they'll receive it from some of those messes, those situations. But they're all known to have those large families. That is a goal from marriage. As soon as they get married, they start having children. That is just a normal Old Order, New Order, Swartz and Trooper. All levels of Amish are known to have large families.
Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to education, once you're married, do you actually know, has anyone talked to you about the talk that they get when they get married as to the extent of knowledge they are provided with upon getting married about sex?
Well, after I left the Amish and was visiting my twin brother, which never shunned me, and he gave me some details on that, because I left obviously before getting married. So he was telling me how stunned he was with in-depth that they went into with his wife. They obviously knew he already knew. He made it known that he knows, but they sat down and they told him and his wife, hey, this is how it works. And they went detail by detail how to have intercourse, how you insert it, and literally went into detail talking about it in their German language. And then they proceeded to tell them, hey, this is normal Amish tradition that for 3 days, from today you're getting married, and for 3 days, you shall not have any sexual intercourse. You have to stay pure for 3 days and pray for 3 days. That's something I didn't know until my brother told me, because he went through it. And those things are all taught on the morning of your wedding, when the bishop and the deacon and the elders are upstairs talking. They separate themselves to another room upstairs in their house to talk about all of this so that nobody overhears it. So that's the kind of education they go into. And then they also tell them, that you should have as many kids as you possibly can. That's a blessing from God. And all of them in my family, my mom's sisters, every single year it seems like they had one. Me and my twin brother are only a year apart from my older brother, and then a year and a half later there's my brother Perry. A year later there's my brother Malin. And so every year my mom was having a child.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot for these women.